Hello, beautiful people. Happy Monday. Gotta love Mondays. I do. I really love Mondays. I love Mondays because I get to do this on a Monday morning. Oh, I love it. I really love it. Oh, I had such a funny thing happen to me today. I love firsts. I love when things happen for the first time. It's like a secret bucket list that I have going in my mind. Things like, oh, that's a first. Oh, I haven't been here before. Oh, I haven't eaten this before. Um, so I'll just share this as I'm waiting for some of you to jump on. Um, so this morning, as I got back from the gym and I was walking down the same street I walk down every morning to my beautiful little coffee shop, um, where I get to connect with these beautiful women to get my coffee. And I got swooped. I got swooped by not just a magpie, but a couple little minor birds as well. And I didn't just get swooped once, I got swooped like multiple times, and it was bloody hilarious. I don't know if you guys follow Sam Cotton on Instagram. If you don't, go check him out. Sam Cotton on Instagram. He makes these funny little Australiana kind of cartoony things, but not really cartoons. But anyway, it was like one of those. Every time I turned back around to the I'd get swooped. It had full on hit my hat. Luckily, I had a hat on. And then I would turn back around and stare at it, and it was like, nope, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. And then I'd keep walking, and I was giggling so hard. I know for some people it's scary, but for me it was just, I couldn't stop laughing at this tenacious, bloody couple of birds. Like, they were just so tenacious in their wanting to attack me. Or maybe they weren't attacking me. Maybe they were just, fully diving in just to go, hi, good morning. Anyway, it was a first for me. I've never been swooped by a bird before, to the point that it fully connected with my hat twice. Anywho, let us dive in to today. Now, today's topic is a big one, because it's something that I've journeyed with through all the layers that I'm going to be sharing with you today. So the thing about comparison is, when I first heard the phrase, comparison is the thief of joy, and just to let you guys know, so my intention for you today in this live is to help you shift your awareness around comparison, and to deepen your awareness and understanding of comparison, and where it might be showing up in your life, and where it might be showing up that you're just perhaps not even realizing that what is occurring is a form of comparison. So let me start with comparison is the thief of joy. Now, what does that mean? It basically just means that whilst we're busy comparing ourselves to someone else, we're missing out on being the fully self-expressed version of who we are. So in fact, I don't know if you know, if you've heard of this book, shameless plug, but there is a whole lesson in my book dedicated to comparison is the thief of joy. And one of my favorite quotes in there is by Kurt Cobain. There's three actually, but the one I really love is, wanting to be someone else is a waste of the person you are. That's a Kurt Cobain quote. And Oprah Winfrey says, be thankful for what you have. You'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you will never have enough. Now, I think they're both amazing, and I think they, for the level of comparison that comparison is the thief of joy is speaking to, they're pretty accurate. However, my journey with comparison, like everything in my life, I'm like a little miner. I should have a little miner's helmet and a little shovel because I have this tendency to always want to go deeper, to want to, kind of like I why stuff, why is that? And why is that? And why is that? And why is that? So I love to go deep on stuff. And so comparison is something that I've gone really deep on. And so my intention today is to share with you what I have come to in my life to understand as the layers of comparison. And it's like the underbelly of a serpent, so you've got the serpent, but then there's the underbelly of the serpent, which we often don't even get to see because it's kind of hidden. And these layers that sit underneath comparison are very much like that. They're quite hidden. And comparison is so often attributed to us personally, but comparison also has an effect on those around us as well. So I'm going to dive into all of that. So I want to start with why do we compare? Why do we compare stuff? Where did that come from? How did we learn to even compare, right? To begin to compare stuff. Well, the simplest answer to that, for me at least, and before I go on, everything I share is from my own lived experiences and my own, digging and researching and studying and the stuff that, that I've become trained in, all of that kind of stuff. However, if any of this doesn't resonate for you, you have my full permission to reject it, right? So feel free to take on what feels good, what resonates, and if it doesn't, feel free to do the opposite, which would be to reject it and not take it on. So why do we compare? So I've actually, I don't often do this, but I've actually made some notes today because there is a lot in this, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. We've also got our card message for the week and our soul voice meditation. So if you have any questions at the end, just send them to me, comment them underneath the live, or I send this out in an email as well, so feel free to just reach out. So why do we compare? So where did we learn how to compare? Well, we learned it from our parents, okay? Now this is not, we're not making anyone right or wrong, this is just observational, right? So we learned it from our parents. We learned how to compare through our parents, and most comparison was hinged on the concept of the good boy or girl. Now, most of you who are watching this will be girls, so but it doesn't matter. It is hinged on what makes you a good girl and what makes you a bad girl, what makes you a good boy, what makes you a bad boy. So our parents were always teaching us to not trust ourselves and trust what felt good, but instead taught us to contrast. And everything that we were choosing was contrasted against a belief, an emotion, a feeling that was taught to us by our parents. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples as we move on, but just to give you some perspective of how did we become, how did we learn to compare? How did we learn what is, what looks like a healthy body and what doesn't look like a healthy body? How did we learn what looks like being a good neighbor is and what isn't a good neighbor, right? How did we learn all that? Well, we learned it through our parents. And all of our parents had a different start point for their contrasting. So this is really important to know, because my parents' start point for contrasting, comparing, is very different to someone else's parents, right? And that would have come from their parents. So what I'm sharing with you today will give you some insights that, if you choose to integrate them, you have the power to create some generational change here, right? You have the power to interrupt this projection of contrasting, right? Giving your children their points of reference. We all have an inner compass, all of us. I talk about this a lot. We all have an inner compass that is guiding us. This is true for our children as well. They have their own inner compass. And whilst as parents, it is our job, obviously, to keep them safe, keep them warm, keep them fed, all of those things. It's not our job to hijack their compass with our own set points. So that's really important. So we all have this inner compass guiding us, okay? So here is the layers. I want to start to unpack the layers. Like I said, I'm moving through this quite quickly today because there's a lot in this conversation, but I'm happy to go deeper with anyone if you want to reach out. So as parents, we have these set points. This is what my North Star is. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to give my North, South, East and West to my kids so that they've got their own bearings. We've got to stop that. We've got to let our kids find their own bearings, their own North Star. What is true for them and not what is true for them based on a set of contrasts that don't even belong to them. This is true for us too. We actually get to release some of this stuff. So I want to go deeper with comparison and what actually is comparison. Hello, beautiful Carol. Thank you for jumping on. What is comparison? So when we start to break comparison down the way I have, it has layers to it. There are two very distinct layers to comparison. So first you have the surface level of comparison, which is what I've just said. Good morning. Great to see you, gorgeous soul. So yes, the first thing is to know the base level of comparison, which is just contrasting. It's this or that, black or white, plain or floral. That's and what is that hinged on? It's hinged on how we were shown or guided to contrast. What were the contrast points that our parents gave us as our base start point for comparing in the first instance? But what I want to do with you today is take it even deeper, okay? So the levels that sit underneath comparison for me, the first level underneath comparison, when we're comparing ourselves or others, what we're really doing is we're just judging. We're making a judgment. We're saying it's this or it's this. And mostly when we're comparing, the word should, supposed to, or expect will filter in there as well. Okay? It should be like this, not this. That's a judgment, right? It's supposed to happen this way, not this way. That's a judgment. It's a comparison on the top level, but underneath there's a judgment driving that comparison. I expected it to happen this way, not this way. I expected that they would do this, not this. That's a judgment, right? So this is when we're comparing outwardly. Now, when we're comparing inwardly, it's exactly the same thing. When we're comparing ourselves, it's the same thing. I should be more successful than I am. Based on whose contrast points, based on whose north, south, east, and west, based on whose version of that. Of course, it'll be our parents, or caregivers, the adults that were in our lives when we were kids. Another version of that is when we say, I'm supposed to be in a relationship by now. I'm supposed to be married by now. I'm supposed to have bought my first house by now. I'm supposed to. Again, it's a judgment compared to what? Compared to what narrative are we driving that from? And it's the narrative that's been given to us, either by parents, sometimes it's culture, sometimes it's, through religion or spirituality or whatever. We've been given a set of parameters to start the comparison journey with. But comparison is like this thin veil that hides judgment. Now, let's go even one more layer deeper, because this to me is where the true nature of the inward destruction occurs for us. Starts off as just as a throwaway comparison, which is just thinly veiled judgment. But the thing that sits underneath judgment is shame. When we're judging something, either ourselves or someone else, we're really shaming them. We're projecting outwardly or inwardly shame. So I'm going to give you some examples of this. So shaming, there's a word that's used a lot right now. It's one of those, it's one of the 21st century buzzwords. And if you ever hear it, this is loosely what it's actually saying. So shaming is known as gaslighting. Okay, gaslighting is just another word, fancy word for shaming. And when we're shaming someone, what we're saying is what you think, feel, or believe doesn't matter. We're invalidating someone or something or ourselves, right? So comparison is an outward or an inward process. We're either shaming, gaslighting, which is just, I'm collapsing this back for you, invalidating someone else's beliefs, thoughts, feelings, emotions, right? We're shaming them, or if we're doing it inwardly to ourselves, we're actually shaming ourselves. That is huge to me. Every time I consider that I'm comparing myself to someone else, what I'm actually doing, if I, and this is how I look at it now, I'm literally stepping outside of myself, turning back to me and going, yeah, you're not good enough compared to her. So that's me bullying me. That's me gaslighting myself. That's me shaming myself. That's me taking the side of the cool kid and abandoning me. Every time I compare myself to someone or something else, whether I'm comparing my success, whether I'm comparing my body, whether I'm comparing my teeth, my smile, whether I'm comparing where I am in life, whether I'm comparing what I have in life. Every time I do that, I'm judging myself first, judging myself against the set of parameters given to me by my parents as normal. And then I'm shaming myself. I'm actually invalidating myself for even having those feelings in the first place. Let me know if this is landing. If you're catching replay, please let me know. #replay. So I want to give you some examples of phrases. I thought it would be really helpful so that you can begin to catch yourself in the gaslighting of yourself or others, which is just comparing, right? The surface is a comparison. You know, I really want you to remember this. Whenever you are comparing, contrasting this or this, you're judging, and then depending on where you go with it, because you're going to choose a side, that's what judgment is, you're then going to be shaming the opposite because you're moving to be the good girl, right? You're moving towards, I need to be the good person here. So I'm going to go with the thing that my parents told me was how I be the good person. That might look like achievement. It might look like being a really good helper. It might be that you are, that you're really good at keeping the peace. It might be it doesn't matter what it is. It might be that you are really academic. It might be that you are, really skeptical and, take your time with stuff. It doesn't matter what your set points are. You will be comparing yourself and the world inwardly and outwardly against those set points. And when you do, you are judging and then shaming. Because shaming is just invalidating what you or someone else, this is inward and outward. I really want you to understand this, guys. This is an inward and an outward process. We judge inwardly and we judge outwardly. We're comparing inwardly, we're comparing outwardly, right? And they're all thinly veiled versions of shaming or gaslighting, right? That's just a 21st century buzzword for it. So I'm going to give you some examples of what it might sound like. And I sat this morning with my coffee and I broke it down into just some common phrases that may help you to catch yourself in this act of comparison, which is the serpent. And then the underbelly of the serpent is the judging and the shaming, right? So when you might be doing this outwardly to others, these are the kinds of things that you might say. You might say, if that was me, I'd never do that. If that was me, I'd never do that. Okay? It's a comparison. If that was me, you're comparing. You're comparing yourself with someone else. If that was me, I'd never do that. So there's a underneath that is the judgment. And if that was me, I'd never do that is a thinly veiled shaming of the person that didn't do what you would do. And what is this? Remember, go back to what's your set point for this? Where did you get your set points for your compass, your moral compass? Where did you got them from your parents, right? Got them from your culture, got them from your community. Now, why is this really helpful to know? Because when we can free ourselves of this, when we can actually not invalidate someone else's choices, feelings, emotions, thoughts, what we give space for is this powerful, it's love, right? At its purest, it's just love. We are then, instead of shaming someone or judging someone, we're actually allowing them to think what they think, feel what they feel, choose what they choose, know what they know, like what they like, and not make them wrong for it. Because when we're comparing, we're really just trying to make something else wrong that will help make us right. Because right is, the good girl, the good boy, the good girl, the good boy. We're trying to come back to that safe point that was given to us by our parents as to what is good, what's good and what's bad. So that's just one. I'll read through some more. Another one that will help you. Another phrase. Why can't you be more like? Bloody blah. Now, if you've got kids, you might have said this to your kids. I'm totally, you know me, you guys know me. I'm very transparent in my parenting faux pas. And I would be sitting here lying to you if I said I didn't ever at some point say that. Why can't you be more like your sister? Why can't you be more like your brother? Why can't you be more like so-and-so up the road? It's a comparison. You're comparing. And when you're comparing, you're judging. When you're judging, you're shaming. You're gaslighting. Shaming is just invalidating someone for what they think or feel. Yeah. Good kids just don't do that. Good people just don't do that. A good person would know better. Compared to what? Compared to who? Compared to whose version of good? If you do X, Y will happen. Again, it's just a comparison, right? We're comparing. And here's a beauty. The whole family agrees with me that if you do this, blah, blah, blah. It's a comparison. It's comparing. Now you're gathering forces for your comparison. The whole family, all the girls agree with me. All my friends agree with me that this is, that you shouldn't be doing that, or that you shouldn't think that, or you shouldn't say that, or whatever. It's all comparison. And comparison is the serpent. The underbelly is the judgment and the shame, the invalidating someone for whatever it is that they're experiencing, feeling, thinking. Now, I want to give you some examples of what it might look like if this is, so they were examples of phrases you might use when you're comparing others outwardly. But I want to give you some phrases that you might recognize that will help you to notice when you're doing this inwardly to yourself, when it's you yourself. So, if only I would have done blah, 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 said blah, 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 chosen blah, blah, blah. If only I would have. Yeah, that's a comparison. You're comparing. If only I would have done this instead of this. Again, what's compared to what? Compared to what? Right? So you're comparing yourself, which is judging yourself that you've done something wrong and not right, and then invalidating that choice, invalidating yourself for choosing what you chose, which is just like, it's internal bullying. This is us internally bullying ourselves. I'm going to offer this to you. This is just coming through. So if you have a thing with bullying, if bullying triggers you, I'm going to invite you to have a look inside of yourself. I'm going to invite you to sink deep and ask, do I bully myself? Do I shame myself? Do I beat myself up? Do I judge myself? Do I compare myself? Because the likelihood is, if bullying is a trigger for you, it is quite often showing us that it's something that we might be doing out to ourselves. That's why when we see it outside of ourselves, it's so triggering. So the invitation for you is have a look, right? This is just to give you some insights into some different ways of seeing stuff so that you can make different choices. Here's a beauty. It could have been worse. It could have been worse. Could have been worse than this, right? Could have been, and here's the other version of that. At least it wasn't this, right? At least I can walk. At least I have two legs, at least I have a roof over my head. And what we're doing when we do that is we are completely shaming ourselves for our feelings. We're shaming ourselves for our thoughts. We're shaming ourselves for our experiences, because we're going, well, it's not that bad compared to, so-and-so. Comparing is gaslighting yourself. Your feelings matter. Your thoughts matter. Your experiences matter. And invalidating them is you bullying you. You ganging up on you. We have to allow ourselves to feel what we feel, think what we think. I wrote this down. Yeah, one of the really, I'm trying to choose the right word here. Versions, I'll use that. One of the most debilitating versions of comparison is when we compare our suffering. Yeah. Our suffering is valid, right? Our suffering is just simply, what are we experiencing in this moment? And can we allow ourselves to experience it, not become it, but experience it? Because every time you compare it to someone else's and you say, oh, well, at least it's not as bad as blah, 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 what you're doing is you're saying to yourself, you're putting yourself into a box. Suffering competition, exactly. Yeah, we get into a competition around this, whose suffering is worse. And if someone's suffering more than you, then you have no right to complain about that. I'm calling bullshit on that. I really am. You have every right to feel what you feel, think what you think, experience what you experience. It is valid. And comparing it to someone else is judging yourself, which is a thinly veiled disguise for shaming yourself, which is a version of gaslighting. And when you are gaslighting yourself, you are saying what you think, what you feel, what you experience doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. It is so vital that you allow it to matter. Yeah, I'm done living in a world where we make ourselves small so that it's easier for everyone around us. All human beings are allowed to experience what they experience, And that's just one version. So comparing also, we compare our bodies. We compare our successes, right? And we're really just judging ourselves. Yeah, and we're never going to feel like we're enough. Why is not enoughness so rampant in our society? Because it's the result of comparing. It's the result of judging. It's the result of shaming. Yeah, and every time we shame ourselves, we're invalidating ourselves. Every time we shame someone else, we're invalidating them. Something that I see a lot on social media is where people will say things like, and they'll use the word privilege as a way of making their point, and basically it's just a version of gaslighting. So they might say, some people will send things around saying, you know, how dare someone complain about this when somewhere in the world it's much worse. That's an invalidation of whatever you're experiencing in your world right here, right now. And if that's what's here for you right now, then that is real for you right now. And you should never have to shut that down in order to be a good person, a good girl. Good girls don't complain. Good girls don't, you know, don't put themselves first. Good girls don't ask for what they want. Good girls don't, you know, there's a whole list of what good girls should and shouldn't do. And the minute you're in a should or a shouldn't, you're just comparing. And when you're comparing, you're judging. And you're judging against a set points, compass points that were given to you. This is just stuff for you to consider, guys. This is stuff for you to take on. See where this is showing up in your own world. Are you comparing people outside of you? Are you comparing yourself? Are you comparing members of your family against your set of values? Are you comparing yourself against someone else's values? If you are, then you're judging yourself or you're judging someone else. And when you're judging, you're shaming. You know, we're saying what you think or feel doesn't matter. It does. Everything that we think or feel matters. So I want to give you, to take away from this today, a different word to take on that to me has helped me a lot. So to move out of comparison, which, you know, we've been conditioned to compare all our lives, right? It's inherently a human condition, but it's amplified through our upbringing because we get given those set points, our frame of reference, pardon me, from our families, from our environment. But for me to shift the word from comparison to discernment helps me a lot. So when I'm comparing, I'm judging. Whenever I'm comparing this or that, I'm judging. Whenever I'm comparing something about myself, I'm judging. Now, discerning, when we're discerning, what we're doing is we're actually making space for all of it. Comparing to survive. Yeah, exactly, Carol. Yeah. It is a survival mechanism, right? Because we want to be in the good girl camp, not the bad girl camp. We want to be in the right girl camp, not the wrong girl camp. Or boy, right? But when we shift into the energy of discerning, what we're doing when we're discerning, we are actually allowing everything to be present, right? We're actually making space for everything to be present, and then we get to choose, right? We get to choose what feels good for us. And that is a very different process to comparison. When we're comparing, we're in this automatic judgment, right? And as humans, we are judging machines. That's what we do, right? That's how we survive. And there's a really great, it's important that we judge at times. We have to judge, is the hot plate on, or am I going to, plonk my hand down on it? We have a place for it. But comparison is like this character, if you like. It's like a character that is dressed up, that kind of is like this veil that sits in front of judging. And we tell ourselves it's okay to do it. We don't see it as judging. I'm just comparing this for this. No, you're probably judging. And what are you judging against? You know, where did you get that from? Where did you decide what was normal? What was, you know, right or righteous? Where did you learn that from? And could you make space for all thoughts, feelings, opinions? Could you allow them all to be valid for every human being? You know, I think about someone who has over the years shoved down their thoughts and feelings. Maybe you know someone who has their whole life shoved down their thoughts, feelings, beliefs. And then what do they put on top of that? How do they keep it shoved down? Sometimes we put food in on top of that. Sometimes we put addictions in on top of that. Sometimes we put, you know, behaviors in on top of that. Anything to keep all of those feelings down that we tell ourselves we're not allowed to feel compared to someone else. Yeah. We have to be allowed to validate our feelings. Yeah. Thank you for for your honesty, Carol. Being able to feel all our feelings means we don't have to compare them to anyone or anything else. We don't have to judge them as good or bad, right or wrong. We don't have to shame ourselves or others for feeling what we're feeling or thinking what we're thinking. You know, we're all human beings here having a human experience, all of us. And there's no right or wrong way to do that. There's just your way to do it. So discernment, be discerning with everything. Be discerning with yourself. Be discerning with what you see in the world. Be discerning and allow it all to be present. Right? And then just choose what feels good for you. Choose what feels good for you. What feels true for you. And then allow that to be there. And then when you do that, you're actually allowing someone else to have that for themselves as well. You don't have to make them wrong. You don't have to compare them. You don't have to say that you shouldn't be thinking that or you shouldn't be feeling that. You don't have to say that to yourself either. So comparing is judging. Discerning is choosing. So my invitation for you today is to allow the comparisons to just float away and to embrace discerning. Be discerning with what feels good for you. And don't compare it to anyone else. Yeah, we have to stop gaslighting ourselves and others. We have to stop invalidating our own feelings and those of others. We have to be able to create a space where all feelings are valid, all thoughts are valid, all experiences are valid. You know, what I'm experiencing here in my day is no less real than what somebody in another country, in a third world country, is experiencing. It's real for them too, right? And if you can feel a part of your body going into, yeah, but Jen, you are so lucky. Yeah, I live in a country, of course. But what happens to me in my day today, and what feelings arise based on what's happening for me today are no less real or no less worthy than anybody else's. They matter. And I shouldn't be shoving them away and shaming myself for feeling what I'm feeling or thinking what I'm thinking. Because compared to someone else, I really shouldn't complain. Sometimes we're not complaining. Sometimes we're just having experiences and feelings that are wanting to be felt that quite often are attached to something much bigger. That's a whole nother Empower Hour. So that's my invitation for you guys for today, to just be aware of the layers that sit underneath comparison. It's not as simple as just comparing X with Y. I think we can judge ourselves for any success, or another word more suitable, we have created for ourselves. Let me just see all this. I think we can judge ourselves for any success we have created for ourselves and feel guilt. Yeah, quite often we do. 100%, Carol. 100%. Sometimes what we do is, we shame ourselves for being successful. I better not be too successful, otherwise people won't like me. Well, there is a comparison. Compared to what? Who told you that? And can you be discerning in allowing all of that to be there and then choose what feels good? Success, when I'm in service, feels damn good to me. Feels good. So I'm being discerning with allowing everything that I've heard and experienced and felt and thought over the years to be present, and then discern what feels good and move in that direction. That way, when I'm doing that, it's an internal empowered process. We'll feel judged for not being empathetic for others, for other worlds, etc. Exactly. We're just gaslighting ourselves. We are invalidating what is real for us. There was this thing going around, which is a perfect example of this, and I'm going to share it, where I don't know if it was in America or Australia, but basically somebody made the statement that people in the Western world shouldn't be complaining about their freedoms when look what's happening in Afghanistan. That to me is classic. The comparison is the serpent. The underbelly is judgment, and the layer underneath that is the shaming, which is just gaslighting, right? Invalidating someone else's feelings compared to something else or someone else. You shouldn't be feeling like this because this is happening elsewhere. Yeah, we have to stop doing this, because ultimately, if we're judging externally, we're just judging internally in some way, shape or form. If we're comparing our feelings outwardly and saying we shouldn't have them, where do they go? We're just shoving them down. We've got years of this, years of suppressed, it's bullying. We are literally bullying ourselves. Yeah, we have to make space for all of our feelings, for all of our thoughts, for all of our circumstances to be valid, to be real, to be allowed, and not compared, judged, or shamed. And we have to do this for ourselves first and foremost, and we need to be mindful to do this for others as well. Yeah. Alrighty, that's my little doozy today on comparison and the depths of how deep comparison goes. On the surface it's just a throwaway, but we have to look at the undercurrent of it. All right, so I'm going to share now our card message for the week from the beautiful Divine Feminine Oracle deck. And this is something that I'm really, really passionate about because of the, it's the hidden effects that we're not realizing are doing the internal destruction, which, if we're destroying ourselves internally, we're just mirroring the world. If we want the world to change, it starts with us. So, looking at our own ways of comparing ourselves, which is just judging ourselves, shaming ourselves, gaslighting ourselves, invalidating ourselves, wherever we're doing that, we need to stop doing that. Yeah. Okay. And if anyone has any questions, of course, about it, please reach out to me. Oh, almost lost one. Okay, I just saw one flip up. Yeah, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful message for this week. So it is, and I'm going to hopefully say this correctly, Anandamayi Ma, she is the joy-permeated mother. And her intentions for us to remember, the message from her today is to remember I am my own guru. And guru, to me, I cannot remember where I heard this. This isn't my own, but I heard this years ago. Guru, G-U-R-U. Guru, if you can remember you are your own guru, guru is just G-U-R-U. G-U-R-U. We're all our own gurus. There's no one that knows us better or can guide us more powerfully than ourselves. So of course, we are our own gurus. You are you. Yes, you are. I know the self that never changes. This is exactly what I've been talking about today, that internal part of us that is our own inner compass. It's our own personal GPS that is guiding us, that we all have. And as kids, it was kind of overwritten with our parents' GPS. Yeah, my invitation is to have a look at what is your truth and what is someone else's truth that's been given to you, because that is what that's your start point for your comparing in the first place. Yeah. All right, I'm going to read you a little bit about this beautiful message for the week. And it really does go in with everything that I've been talking about today, which I absolutely love. So I will put in the comments who she is so that you can have a look at that. But I love to read what it means when your soul selects her card. So there's a passage in Autobiography of a Yogi by Pramhansana Yoganda, I think that's how you say it, that relates an encounter he had with Anandamayi Ma, which is our beautiful card today. He asks her why she is always so filled with joy and can enter states of bliss instantly. She explains to him that she's aware of her true self. She knows that before she came to earth, she was the same. As a little girl and later when she grew into a woman, still she was the same. And now, sitting in front of Yogananda, she remains the same. And even after death, she says, though the dance of creation changes around me, I shall be the same. This self-realization, merging with that aspect within us that never changes, it's becoming conscious of the self that is eternal while within this brief mortal existence. I love it. Under Myanmar believed that the only true calling or purpose any of us have is to become realized. And so she believed that any action we take toward that goal is sacred. Yeah, this is the compass piece, right? This is like, it's like cleansing our compass. The work with comparison, when you can understand where you are comparing yourself or others, it's like cleansing your compass, cleansing your inner compass. To not need anything around you to be a certain way in order for you to be attuned to your own compass. Yeah, I love that. There's a deep, calm, abiding joy that arrives when we can merge with the aspect of us that never changes. There is a bliss we get to experience every time we detach from the surface storms that cause chaos in our lives. If we can remember that we are the guru, remember guru is G-U-R-U. 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 If we can remember that we are the guru, that we are an aspect of the divine that remains the same no matter how much change surrounds us, then we get to arrive at a joy that lives at the core of our being. Yeah. Comparison is about cleansing our compass so that we are moving to our own truth. And when you are moving to your own truth, you will have no need to compare that to anyone else's. You will have no desire to require anyone else's compass to be the same as yours. It won't be necessary because you will be in such trust of your own guidance. You won't need the world to look a certain way for you to be attuned to that. Which means you will have no need to judge anyone or anything for their compass. Which means you will have no need to shame someone because their compass is not like your compass. Yeah. All of us have our own inner truth. And it all is valid. All of it. Yeah, be mindful, beautiful humans. Are we comparing and shaming, judging from a space of some set points that were given to us that aren't even ours? Yeah, beautiful. So the Soul Voice meditation question for us today is, what does joy feel like in my body? So that's the question for our Soul Voice meditation today. What does joy feel like in my body? So let's drop in. Let's drop in and do our Soul Voice meditation together today. This is our, this might be a once a week thing for you where you just do this once a week. And if you do, that's beautiful. So beautiful. You might do this several times a day. The one thing I know for me when I sit in stillness, when I listen to silence, is that nothing changes and everything changes. So my invitation to you today is, to find a couple of minutes to just take those 3 intentional breaths. Because when you drop into your heart space, when you are moving from here instead of here, your discernment, your choices, your discernment of what is actually happening around you will be from a purity, from a space of just open-hearted love that doesn't need anyone or anything to align with you in order for you to be safe, whole and loved. Right? You won't need that. So every time we sink into our heart, we are moving from that beautiful energy of just such purity, of not needing to compare anything with anything. It will feel so whole and so light and so safe and so complete every time we sink into our heart. And we can do that with 3 intentional breaths. Yeah. So the first intentional breath, we will just sink. The second intentional breath, we will ask the question and then have a couple of minutes silence to listen to what we might hear or feel or vision. And then the third intentional breath is a breath of gratitude to your heart, who always knows what is your truth. Yeah. Your heart is just the space that holds you fully, with nothing needing to be any particular way. Okay, so let's begin. Let's begin with taking that. If you want to, if you're driving, don't do this, of course. But if you are in a place where you can close your eyes down, and let's take our first intentional breath together. It may be your first intentional breath today. Let's breathe in and breathe out. And as we take that first intentional breath together, let's call our energy back from wherever it may be. Let's just call ourselves back from all time, spaces, and places. Just lovingly call to our energy and just say, I call myself back from all time, spaces, and places. I call myself back from all time, spaces, and places. I lovingly call myself back from all time, spaces, and places. And it might feel like tingles to you as you do that. I often feel just some really light tingles in my body as I literally feel, just through the intention of those words, I feel all of the particles of my consciousness kind of come zooming back into my body. And as we're allowing that to happen, I want you to imagine a beautiful ring of light, like a halo, but it runs from the top of your head down under your feet and back up to the top of your head, kind of like an egg-shaped ring of light that just surrounds your entire body. And there's this thin, beautiful, bright white light that emanates from this ring. And you can feel it making its way into the cells of your body. And it kind of floods in and around all of your organs and cells and blood and atoms and particles and everything that makes you you. You feel this beautiful light, almost doing a cleansing sweep right through your body. And it's flooding you with this beautiful purity that is the truth of you. And as the light floods in, the light also draws out anything that is not of you, anything that is not your truth. And as you feel this light moving through your body, You might notice in the center of your body something that's shaped like a compass that just begins to light up and pulse. Brighter, whiter, lighter. Feeling like it's just being cleansed and purified, and the amplification of this beautiful compass inside you begins to pulse and grow with this beautiful white light. And as we sink and allow ourselves to soften down into our heart, we might feel ourselves melting, our muscles softening, our shoulders softening, our tongue softening in our mouth, our jaw softening. If you were to imagine some candle wax melting down the side of a candle, so too are you melting down into your heart. And as we arrive in our beautiful soft heart space, we take our second intentional breath together, breathing in and breathing out. And with that second intentional breath, we ask the question to our heart: what does joy feel like in my body? What does joy feel like in my body? What does joy feel like in my body? And just taking a couple of minutes in silence together to receive the answer to that question, to receive it in our body, to notice any sensations, any words that we may hear, any visions we may see, any sounds we may hear. Just sitting together in silence for a minute or two. Just joining me now as we take our third and final intentional breath in this practice today. And as we breathe in and breathe out, we give gratitude to our heart, to our wisdom, to our compass, for everything she knows by heart, for holding us, for the wisdom that she shared with us today. Just join me now as we breathe in together. And breathe out. Thank you, 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 thank you. And when you're ready, just open your eyes and come back to where you are. Thank you, beautiful Carol, for joining me. So good to see you. And if you do have any questions with anything on today's Empower Hour or anything else, please reach out. Sometimes it can be easier to address this to a personal situation that you might be dealing with. So yeah, please reach out to me. Happy to book in a time for you to do that. Okay. Yes, please do, Carol. Please do. All right, beautiful humans. Have a wonderful week ahead. Be aware of what brings you joy throughout your day and your week. Look for those moments. Anchor them in. Bookmark them. Let them flood your body. And be discerning. Be discerning with your truth. And know that that's something that you can choose just for you. It doesn't have to contrast with anything else. Yeah. Okay. Mwah. See you soon.